Hey everyone, welcome to Nightmare at 3 a.m. Before we begin, if you enjoy scary stories, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who also enjoys that chilling feeling. Also, drop a comment below telling me what time you're watching this. There's always someone watching in the middle of the night, and I love reading your comments. Now, without further delay, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and get ready. Tonight's stories are true, and they might make you think twice before going to sleep. I never thought I'd end up in Portland, let alone in a quiet little post-war rental on the east side. The house wasn't much. Single-story wood frame with a crooked mailbox and a rhododendron bush that looked like it had survived a few apocalypses. But after my divorce and the creative collapse that came with it, I figured the best thing I could do was disappear somewhere that didn't expect much from me. Portland fit the bill. So did the house. The ad said it had charm, which I've since learned is code for structurally intact but emotionally unstable. Still, it was cheap and quiet. Mostly, the first few weeks were uneventful. I spent my days sketching ideas for a children's book I hadn't yet sold, and my nights binging noir films with too much scotch. I told myself I was healing, and maybe I was, until the sound started. They came on a Sunday, early, 4:06 a.m. I remember because I just glanced at my phone before plugging it into the charger. Then, faint, deliberate, 3 sounds in sequence. 2 slow footsteps and a dull knock, like knuckles against wood. Then a dragging scrape. It came from above. The attic, I remembered. I'd never been up there. The landlord had said it was sealed off due to insulation issues, whatever that meant. There was a padlock on the crawl space hatch in the hallway ceiling. Still that night, I climbed on a chair and knocked. Nothing answered. The next Sunday, same thing. Same hour, same sounds. This time, I recorded it. Playback caught only silence. I thought maybe I'd imagined it. Stress, scotch, my own loneliness. But by the 3rd week, I stopped sleeping on Saturdays. At 4:06 sharp, 2 footsteps, knock, drag. Always in that order. I called the police, told them I thought someone might be in the attic. 2 officers came. They looked up at the padlocked hatch and shrugged, said there was no sign of forced entry. One of them asked if I'd been watching any scary movies lately. I followed up with the landlord. She sounded tired, like she'd had this conversation before. Said no one had keys to that padlock anymore. It was rusted shut. Just old wood and dust up there, she insisted. Ignore it. Old houses do weird things. But it wasn't the house I didn't trust. It was the pattern. Sunday night, week 4, I stayed in the hallway. 4:06. This time I didn't just hear it, I felt it. The floor beneath me seemed to tense, like wood flexing under weight that shouldn't be there. The knock echoed more sharply. The scrape was longer. I went to Home Depot the next day and bought a bolt cutter. It took effort. The padlock was brittle, but stubborn. It finally snapped and fell, dust curling into the air. I hesitated. Something in me wanted to call someone, anyone, but I didn't. I pulled the hatch open. A small wooden ladder unfolded downward, creaking as if it remembered the last time it was used. The air smelled like rot and insulation. I climbed. The attic was empty, almost. There was a single wooden chair facing the far wall. No windows, no light, except what I brought with me. On the wall above the chair, something was pinned, a laminated newspaper clipping, yellowed, curling at the edges. I leaned in and read the headline. Local man dies after weeks of watching tenants from crawl space. No photo, just the article, dated 1996. Details were vague. Man found dead, malnourished. Accessed crawl spaces through attics in multiple rental homes. Tenants never knew. I stood there for maybe a full minute, trying to understand what the hell I was looking at. Then I heard the knock, not from above, from below. I froze at the top of the ladder. It came again, knock, but slower this time, almost thoughtful. Then steps. Someone moving across the hardwood floor of the hallway. My hallway. I shut off my flashlight. Darkness filled the attic like a liquid. I crouched low, heart hammering. I don't know how long I stayed there, maybe minutes, maybe hours, until I finally worked up the courage to climb down, one rung at a time, holding my breath. The hallway was empty, no sign of intrusion. I walked through every room with a flashlight, whispering my own name like a shield. Nothing. Back in the hallway, I looked up. The hatch was still open. The attic above me was silent. Then I noticed something at my feet. A scratch on the floorboards. A single line, fresh. Like something had been dragged from the hatch to my bedroom door. I locked myself in that night. Didn't sleep. Didn't eat. In the morning, I called the police again. This time, they were less patient. Said I seemed distressed, asked if I had someone to stay with. I showed them the newspaper clipping I'd taken from the attic. They said it was weird, but not illegal. No crime, no help. I bought motion cameras, one for the hallway, one for the bedroom. I set them to alert me if anything moved between 4 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. For 3 nights, nothing. On the 4th, the bedroom camera pinged. I opened the app, watched the footage. At 4:06 a.m., the hatch creaked open, the ladder unfolded, then frame by frame, a figure emerged. Bare feet, thin legs, pale arms, no face visible. Just long matted hair and slow, confident movements. The figure stepped down into the hallway, walked to my bedroom door, stood there, not knocking, just standing for 10 minutes. Then it turned, climbed back up, and closed the hatch. The next day, I broke the lease. The landlord didn't argue, said, "I understand," and hung up. That was it. I moved across town, new place, no attic, no crawl space. I still can't sleep through the night. Every Sunday, I wake at 4:06 on instinct. Sometimes I check the ceiling. Sometimes I hear creaking, but it's just in my head. I tell myself that, and yet I never found out who pinned that article up there. I follow the thought of Joan Didion. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. But sometimes, those stories are the only thing keeping something else quiet. And if we stop telling them, maybe it climbs down again. You don't really expect to be scared after 30 years on the road. Not in the traditional sense. You get your share of close calls, jackknife trailers, brake failures, tweakers at gas stations, but you build a tolerance. It's the kind of fear that burns fast and leaves nothing. This was different. It happened in November of 2017. I was hauling a partial load eastbound on Interstate 40, cutting across Arizona. Long, flat stretches of desert. Night so black, it swallows your headlights. I'd stopped in Winslow to fuel up and grab a sandwich, planning to make Albuquerque by morning. But the storm came in fast. One of those desert tantrums with wind that throws sand like bullets. Visibility dropped to hell. I pulled off near mile marker 214, thinking I'd waited out at a rest stop I remembered from years back. Turns out it had been shut down. The asphalt was cracked. Building boarded up. No lights. Still, I had no choice. I parked, locked up, and tried to settle in the sleeper cab. I must have dozed off because the next thing I remember was my CB crackling. "You see him?" That's all it said. Male voice. Low. Calm. I sat up, reached for the mic. "Who's this?" "Nothing. Just static." I looked out through the side window. There was a man standing near the edge of the lot, maybe 30 feet away, perfectly still. Not near any car, just there. I turned on the high beams. The guy didn't flinch. Could have been 40, maybe older, dressed in jeans and a long dark coat, no hat, no bag. His face was pale, like visibly pale, even from that distance. I tried the CB again. "Seriously, who is this?" Then the voice came back. Same tone. "Don't leave the cab." That's when I checked my phone. No signal, no data. Even the GPS spinner was frozen. I called 911 anyway. The call failed. I watched the guy. He wasn't moving, but somehow he was closer. I hadn't seen him move, but now he was maybe 20 feet from the front bumper. I honked the horn. He didn't even blink. I turned off the headlights. Darkness poured in. When I turned them back on, he was gone. Not faded, not walking away, gone. I opened the door. Stupid, I know, but I stepped out with my flashlight, scanned the area. Nothing, just wind and silence. Back in the cab, I locked everything, stayed awake, watching. At 3:11 a.m., the CB crackled again. "You should have stayed on the main road." The voice wasn't calm this time. It was regretful, like a warning too late. The GPS came back online around 4 a.m. Cell signal returned. I started the engine and pulled back onto the interstate. Drove straight through to Albuquerque. No music, no radio. But here's the thing. My odometer hadn't moved. 0 miles. The fuel gauge hadn't dropped at all. I checked everything again at the depot. No errors, no glitches. It's like I never left that rest stop. I follow the thought of David Lynch. Bad things can happen in broad daylight, but worse things happen when no one can find you. And the scariest part, no one ever logged a call on my CB. No one was supposed to be transmitting on that channel. And to this day, there is no rest stop listed for mile marker 214. I moved to Chicago in the winter of 2022, after nearly 2 years dealing with burnout that took me out of the market. I worked in sound design for shorts and indie documentaries. Nothing glamorous, but enough to get by. When I crashed, I had to drop everything. A psychiatrist told me I needed silence. I found an old apartment in Logan Square on the 3rd floor of a brick building. Small, cheap, and with big windows facing the street. Perfect. I've always preferred neighborhoods in transition. It's like places, too, are trying to figure out who they are. The first month went well. I bought a plant. Started cooking. Forced myself to stay offline as much as possible. Sometimes I'd just sit on the couch and look at the buildings across the street. Right in front of mine was an empty structure, one of those with exterior staircases and rectangular windows in a row. Abandoned since the fire, they said. The ground floor still had graffiti calling for local resistance. It looked like a place that had lived too much. It didn't bother me until I noticed the woman in the window. It was a Tuesday around 2:30 a.m. I'd woken up for no reason, went to the kitchen for water, and passed through the living room. That's when I saw her. Third floor of the building across, right side window. She was there, pale face, tied back hair, neutral expression, staring at me. When I noticed, she slowly raised her arm and waved. Once, that was it. I thought I was dreaming. I stared at the dark window for over a minute. No one else there. Nothing moved. I went back to bed. Next night, same thing. 2:33 a.m. exactly. I woke up alone, stood up with an anxiety that didn't feel like mine, went to the living room, and there she was. Same place, same face, same gesture, a calm wave, almost rehearsed, like she was greeting me out of habit. I started keeping my phone ready to record. On the fourth night, I opened the camera and filmed. The image was shaky, but I managed to catch the window. When I played it back, all I saw was my apartment. Nothing but the reflection of my living room and my own silhouette against the kitchen light. On Friday, I went to the local police station. I told them about the woman in the abandoned building. The officer was polite but firm. The third floor of that building was sealed after the 2020 fire, structurally unsound. No one's lived there since. I suggested someone might have broken in, or it could be dangerous. He shook his head. We patrol there regularly. If no one breaks in, we don't break in. I went back home. That night, at 2:33, she was there again. But this time, the wave was faster. It wasn't a greeting, it was a beckon. And before disappearing, she pointed. Not to the street, not to the building. She pointed straight at me, at my side of the window, at my apartment. The next night, I covered the living room mirror. I don't know why. Something in the reflection from the video unsettled me more than the woman herself, as if something was out of place, and that something was me. I stopped recording. Instead, I sat on the couch before 2 a.m. I waited. When the clock hit 2:33, everything was dark and silent, but not for long. The wave came again, more urgent, and once more she pointed. But now she was closer to the window, like each night was shortening the distance between us. I called the police a second time. This time they came. 2 officers. One went upstairs with me. The other stayed on the street, shining a flashlight at the building across. They pointed light at every window. No response. The officer who stayed with me looked around quickly, glanced at my plants, and mentioned he had a fern at home too. Asked if I was taking any medication. Not suspiciously, just with pity. If it happens again, call us, but honestly, it seems like one of those weird old glass reflections. But it wasn't. The next night, there was no wave. There was a knock, a dry knock on my window, 3 times, with no one on the other side, just the glass, closed. I turned off the lights, sat on the floor, and stayed there. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, and for the first time I thought, maybe this isn't someone. Maybe it's something. The last night I spent there was a Saturday. At 2:33, the woman didn't appear. But the building across had every window on the 3rd floor open. I swear I saw furniture inside. And for a moment, I was sure I saw my own couch. The next morning, I asked for a rental refund, citing structural risk and leakage. A lie. The apartment was perfect. Before I left, I slid a note under the door of apartment 3C. Quiet old man. Listened to AM radio and swept the hallway every day. I wrote, "Have you ever seen anyone in the 3rd floor window of the building across the street at 2:33 a.m. 3 days later, I got a letter, yellowed paper, firm, old handwriting. It only said, "Don't look back." She knows when you see her. I follow the thought of Susan Sontag. All terror is a form of knowledge, and there are things that only exist when we notice them. But the reverse is also true. Maybe by noticing, we permit them. Maybe by waving back, I let her in. If you made it this far, then some part of you knows. Not all trails end when the path runs out. And for that, thank you for listening all the way through. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It helps this project grow and keeps the stories coming. And now, I want to hear from you. Which story hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. The woods may forget your footsteps, but those who listen never forget the sound. I'll see you in the next episode.